She's here. I think she's also Miss Glenda. Did you? Yeah, as they say, could you acércate más, no? Come closer. No? Anyway, good afternoon. I want to first thank you for joining us this afternoon. I was away the last reception that was held, and I was informed that all hell broke loose. Specifically, they had food, they had dancing, which is against the Sabbath, and they carried on just the same. And so I wasn't going to be here today, but I said to myself, please be here to preserve the existence and the presence of the Consulate. But I want to talk about our guest artist for the day, because there's a thing that is called residential integration. That means it talks about where you live, specifically where you live in Belize. I'll give you an example. If you lived on Park Road, you say you come from Back Road, and ordinary everyday folks end up living on Back Road. But if you say you live on Eve Street, that gives you name identification. I will share with you the folks that live on Eve Street are the Geggs and the Hunters and the Parks. And so if I were to say to you, where do you live, and you say Eve Street, why, she's in a good place, good street. And so when you look at Glenda's case, now basically Glenda comes from what is called behind the Ebenezer. But she's not going to tell you that. Glenda is not going to say she came out of Park Road. She's going to say she came out of Eve Street. That gives her, it's like the folks who live on Regent Street. You have Regent Street and Regent Street West. If you say you live on Regent Street, that means you live in, upper middle class. If you live on Regent Street West, you won't talk about that. You will just say, I live on Regent Street. Have you ever heard someone who lived on Ayabra say, I live on Ayabra? What they end up saying, they live on Albert Street. Or Albert Street West, or near Wesley College. They never say they live at Ayabra. That, my friends, is what is called residential socialization. That's 202. If you want to do a master's program, which is 504, you talk about the entire country. But let me talk about Miss Glenda for 1 second, because we found out that Miss Glenda, you asked her where she was born, and Helen, what's the name of the place? Flowers Lime Walk. How many of us have heard of Flowers Lime Walk? Huh? 5 folks the most, and it ain't a city address. It's just not big city. Flowers Lime Walk is near Flowers Bank, right? And if you live at Flowers Bank, they call you from Bush. But Glenda's not going to say that. She's not even going to say she came out of Park Road. She's going to say she came out of what? Thank you very much. But I want to now turn this program over to Miss Helen, because she is the person most responsible for coordinating the series of programs we have had. And I can tell you, she'll be introducing some guests, because they've been invited here because they know what we're doing, and the fact that they would like to become engaged in similar activities. So, Ms. Helen.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming out and supporting this endeavor here at the Consulate of Belize. This is the 3rd exhibit that we're having for art, and Ms. Glenda, who's so gracious and talented, like all the other artists are. We started in April 28, I believe it was. We had an inaugural exhibit, and then our first artist exhibited was Greg Palacio. Greg? Okay. And he exhibited for 3 weeks. And we had a reception just like this, and then his artwork was up for 3 weeks. And then after Greg, we had Marcos Larios from San Pedro, Belize. And again, we also had a reception, and then his artwork was up for 3 weeks. And now today, we're starting off with Miss Glenda. And her work is going to be up for 3 weeks. So we encourage you to tell everyone about it. They can come to the Consulate of Belize, stop by during the office hours, which is on the brochure. Make sure you get a copy of the brochure before you leave with that information. And then after Miss Glenda, our fourth artist is going to be Isaiah Nicholas, and he's here with us today, Isaiah. And then after Isaiah, it will be a young lady, Celeste Pedersen. And that should close off our series of art exhibits. Similarly, prior to that, we had a series of photography exhibits. And we have several of the photographers today in the house. We have Francis right in front of me, Francis Estrada. Actually, he was the first one to display his work. And we have Norman Reno. Norman. And incidentally, Norman also has a current exhibit ongoing right now at Calumet Photo on Highland. Yes, on Highland. So if you contact Norman, he'll give you that information about, so you can stop by and see his exhibit, which is a span of how many years, Norman? How many years was your? About 5 years of photography work that he has done with carnivals. So interesting. And then we also have Kurt Sanchez in the house as well. Kurt, another photographer who exhibited here at the Consulate as well. And then the others are, Clyde. How could I forget Clyde? Clyde Gillett. And Clyde Gillett also, by the way, he's also a filmmaker. He's an award-winning filmmaker. His film won an award. So, you know, it's a pleasure knowing these very talented people. But also, not to delay any further, I'd like to thank Mr. Bob Farrell. Thank you for, once again, being here with us. He is a great friend of Belizeans, former councilman. And we also have Mr. Winfield Tillett, Mr. Tillett. And we have Silvano Torres. Silvano? Okay. Let me start with Silvano. If I can have Silvano come up and say a few words. Please introduce yourself.
Thanks, Robert. Thanks, Mr. York. My name is Silvano Torres, and I represent Belize in this Central American organization called COFECA. Every year we do a 3-day event at City Hall in MacArthur Park, actually. And this is those take place. Those take place at in September. And I have a flyer right now, and the dates are going to be for this year. It's going to be
For the day, she's here. I think she's also Miss Glenda. Did you? Yeah, and they say could you acerca de más, no? Come closer. Anyway, good afternoon. I want to first thank you for joining us this afternoon. I was away the last reception that was held, and I was informed that all hell broke loose. Specifically, they had food, they had dancing, which is against the Sabbath, and they carried on just the same. And so I wasn't going to be here today, but I said to myself, please be here to preserve the existence and the presence of the Consulate. But I want to talk about